Alright, so today's video is a quick little update on my Final Fantasy VI journey. I've now played, not 100% sure if it's halfway, but I'm at 10 hours in, something along those lines. And yeah, just wanted to give you my opinion on that game and if it's worth playing in 2025, especially after playing Chrono Trigger. I have to say, Final Fantasy VI is an amazing game and the storyline is actually also really good. But coming from Chrono Trigger, although Final Fantasy VI is an amazing game, it kind of underlines my opinion about Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is amazing. It's one of the best games ever that I've ever played, and it has, rightfully so, a place in my top 5. But Final Fantasy VI is an amazing game, but it has a couple of quirks that, while it is enjoyable, it's not as enjoyable as in Chrono Trigger. I mentioned this before. If I wouldn't have had the chance to play Chrono Trigger, this probably wouldn't be something that I would have picked on because I love Final Fantasy VII. I recently played through Final Fantasy VII. I started Final Fantasy VIII, didn't like it that much, started Final Fantasy IX, and yeah, I couldn't continue playing it because of an error. So I thought, let's play Chrono Trigger. I played that and I'm in love with that game. So if I wouldn't have played Chrono Trigger, what I'm now about to say, I wouldn't have noticed. With Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy in general, as far as I don't know about the newer versions, battles are randomized and you don't see your enemy. So you're walking around and then suddenly this new screen comes up, it loads into this new screen and you go into a battle. You don't know when it's going to happen. It just happens and it has these loading times going into the battle scene, but also going out of the battle scene. And coming from Chrono Trigger, where you do see your enemies, you know when the battle is coming, there is no change in excuse me, there is no change in the screen. So you see the enemies and basically it only has a pop-up for your HP and MP, and then you just start battling. And when it's finished, you just continue walking, right? So it's a very fluent experience, and an experience because you see the enemies that it's much easier to kind of follow the storyline and kind of prepare yourself of what's going on. I mentioned this example that imagine you are in a dungeon where you kind of need to remember where you're going, where you need to go. And every time you kind of try to memorize, okay, I went left and I went right, there is a battle going on, and you go into a screen that looks completely different. That makes memorizing where you have come from and where you potentially need to go a little bit more difficult. So it is much more easier to kind of get lost in the story in Chrono Trigger opposed to Final Fantasy VI. So that is something that does annoy me a little bit. However, it makes grinding for levels, for experience points, for magic points, for money a lot easier, in air quotes, but almost a necessity. So there are huge chunks of those 10 hours that I played where I'm just kind of being in the open world and I'm just doing this circle movement on the D-pad to kind of move the characters in a circle and going from one battle to the next battle to the next battle because I needed money and I wanted to level up some of the characters. That can get a little bit boring, but it is necessary. It is definitely necessary in Final Fantasy VII. And with this, I'm not sure. I didn't encounter any like major bosses that I wasn't able to beat. Maybe because I grinded a little bit too hard. But yeah, I'm not really sure about that. That is basically my biggest gripe with this installment of Final Fantasy. I do not remember that Final Fantasy VII was as obnoxious in terms of getting into battle after battle after battle, because there are some parts in this game in Final Fantasy VI where you basically go into battle every 5 seconds. So it is really hard to kind of move your character in one direction without going through, I'm exaggerating a little bit, 10 battles. And that can be a little bit annoying, to be quite frank. That being said, well, that is a mechanic that I did not or do not really appreciate that much. I kind of gotten used to it. That being said, while that is a negative, I can totally say that this game has a really cool story and the characters are also really cool. There are a lot of characters. But you don't get lost with all of those characters. They're not... I kind of try to compare this now with my last D&D session, where we had a D&D session where we all had all different characters, and the DM really wanted us, each of our characters, to have a side story, a side quest that kind of is only for that character. And while that is a good idea, at some point, some of us in the group were kind of zoning out because the DM obviously had only time to kind of focus his energy on that, or the storyline on that one particular character, and all the others had to kind of wait around. So you would kind of imagine that with so many characters in Final Fantasy VI, you maybe get lost or forget about a couple of the characters because there are so many. But in actuality, it doesn't overwhelm you too much with some of the characters' storylines. So you can follow the main storyline, but also get kind of connected to each character without overwhelming you. And again, I already hear that voice of that one commenter that said, "Oh, why are you considering video games stressful?" or what I just said, overwhelming. And I kind of want to remind anyone who's new to my channel, I utilize these devices for short breaks in between my workday to kind of reset my brain. And if you only play like for 10 to 20 minutes in bursts, and then you have to go back to work, you sometimes forget where you left off. You sometimes forget what kind of storyline there was, or what kind of quest you are kind of following right now. And maybe that is an issue of me being over 40. But again, if you play it only for short bursts, and then there are 4 hours of work in between, then sometimes you forget where you are. But I felt like with this game, despite the fact there are so many characters, I still remember each character, and I know where they're coming from and where they are going. That being said, regarding quests, this is something that I fortunately picked up on Linus Tech Tips WAN show, where Linus, if you don't know, that's like this big tech YouTube channel. There are 2 people on their podcast. It's Luke and Linus always kind of asked Luke to play this game. And he told him, if you're playing the Super Nintendo version, it is actually mandatory to have the manual, because there are so many things that are explained in the manual. And while I did not read the manual fully, there's one thing in the manual that is, you need that, and that is the map, the world map. And I vividly remember the times when I was a kid, when you kind of rented a Super Nintendo game and you had the manual. It was a really cool experience to kind of dive through the manual and kind of see what you need to do. And with this game, nowadays we're not used to kind of look at the manual or a world map for that matter. But in this game, you actually need to. If you don't have that map, you don't know where to go, because the game will just throw city names in your direction, and if you don't have the map, you have no clue where that city is. Some people will kind of tell you, yeah, it's somewhere in the east, or somewhere in the south, and you don't realize that that is on a completely different continent, or there is a mountain in between and you need to find a way to get to that. And without the map, you would kind of assume, okay, it's somewhere in the vicinity close to you, but not with a mountain or a complete ocean in between. So without the map, you would have a hard time kind of getting through that game. So if you start playing that game, I would highly recommend to kind of look up the PDF for that manual, so you at least have the map. Yeah, that's, in my humble opinion, definitely mandatory if you want to play that game. Yeah, but overall, I can highly recommend the game. Again, if you're coming from Chrono Trigger, it will be a little bit of a drag in terms of kind of going through that battles, in my humble opinion. But if you are a Final Fantasy person like I have been, and you kind of asking yourself, oh, should I play Chrono Trigger or should I play Final Fantasy VI? I would say rather play Final Fantasy VI. If you're considering playing both games, I would say play Final Fantasy VI first and then go to Chrono Trigger, because the first hours of playing Final Fantasy VI after coming from Chrono Trigger will be a little bit exhausting for you, because you go through so many random battles. But if it's only about story, both games up to now are really cool. All right, that was my quick interim review of Final Fantasy VI. I can recommend it with those caveats that I mentioned. Let me know if you have played Final Fantasy VI. What are your opinions about these random battles? Did you experience them to be as many and as obnoxiously frequent as I experienced it? Let me know in the comment section below. And maybe check out the video from yesterday where I kind of talked about size being mattering. Check it out in the video up here. YouTube thinks that you like the video on here. And don't forget to subscribe and hype and like this video by clicking the button up here. Then we will see each other tomorrow. Thank you very much.